So is mine. Mine's going to the cloud. All right. So for the recording, welcome back. We are Monday study group starting our investigation into the Heart Sutra. This is December 13th, 2024. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it would be if we could also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they would go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning that that is possible. We're learning how it's possible. And so think of what you know of karma and emptiness. And grow that wish to help that other into an intention. Even a determination to become one who can help them in that deep and ultimate way. Then turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. All right. So thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So the Heart Sutra is one of the practice modules that Geshe Michael taught as he was teaching the monastic curriculum to that small but growing group in New York City in the 1990s. I was not part of that original group. I did receive the Heart Sutra teaching from him directly in February of 2000 in California. It was the last public teaching that he gave before going into his great retreat. So Samati and I had just met his teachings the year or so before that. And I went to those teachings in California, but Samati had been asked if he could help them put up the yurts in the desert of Arizona. And so Samati rented an RV and went out to the desert south of St. David, and I got to go to this teaching in California. We both had extraordinary experiences, and you know what happened next. So it is a teaching that's dear to my heart. And then, as some of you know, we just finished sharing it in Barcelona recently, where we gave the practice module over the weekend. And then we stayed for the week and we dug in deep into Khedrubje's 4-part meditation. And I'd never done that before. So it really was an extraordinary experience. And it's like I'd do it again in a heartbeat. It went so deep for people. And it's such a pleasant meditation that takes us to the core. So when this course was originally taught, the practice modules were taught as long weekend retreats. And so the teaching would start, I don't know, a Thursday or Friday night and go 3 or 4 2-hour classes for a couple of days to finish 8 or so classes by the end of the weekend. So it was really an intensive. And then it was part teaching and part guided meditation. So it has homeworks, but you're not required to complete them like for our ACI Foundation courses. Rather, they're study guides. More importantly, is to work with the meditation that we learn. So we'll learn this 4-part meditation on dependent origination and emptiness through the course of these classes. So we're going to do it 2 classes a week and then some time off, and then we'll finish up. So we're going to piece it together more slowly. And so really, one's practice would be for this course would be to explore the piece of the meditation that we have so far as we learn it. Right? So not a lot to do for this course. We are recording the sessions in multiple ways. I'll send you a link to the cloud recording, and I have it set up that cloud recording is available for 3 days. So if you want it, download it, because otherwise you'll have to get it from someplace else. And then it gets put someplace else permanently. And Joanna knows where that is. Rashna knows where that is. So they are available, but from the link I give, it's only good for 3 days. So I'm saying that less for you guys than for the group that said, I want to take the Heart Sutra, but they're not here. So hopefully they'll be here in the future. All righty. So I think originally the ACI courses and practice modules were designed for people who were on their spiritual path or looking for a spiritual path, and who had the attraction to the Buddhist teachings, particularly the Buddhist teachings in the lineage of the Mahayana, in the lineage of the Tibetan Gelugpa. So we are a very specific school of Buddhism or lineage of Buddhism. One of many, one of multiple ones in Tibet, and one of more multiple ones across the rest of the world. And each one has developed its own vocabulary and way of explaining the teachings by Shakyamuni Buddha. And with our growing understanding of emptiness and karma, it's like, that's exactly how it should be, right? Each person that hears these teachings, it's coming from their own seeds. So if those seeds are good seeds, then they're going to ripen as an experience that we can relate to. And if they're not good seeds, heaven forbid, they would ripen as experiences we don't relate to. And curiously, right, we can have Buddhism seeds that relate to Tibetan Gelugpa, but don't relate so much to, I don't know, Thai Pali. It's the same teachings. None are wrong. None are more wrong or more right. All right. Same beautiful teachings from the perspective of the beings and the cultures where they're being practiced. So I don't know, who we were before that made our seeds be so specific. But thank goodness we have them. We have these teachings not only translated from Tibetan into, my language, thank you very much, and then also from a vocabulary that's understandable for a puny mind like mine. And I'm just so grateful for that, because it hooked me and kept me of never intending to. I mean, I was the student and I just wanted to grow my own spiritual path. And then without ever intending it, bingo, here I am. So I encourage you, right, to just crack your mind open a little bit, that maybe someday, bingo, here you will be as well, with a handful of serious people that would like to know, like, what's been poured into me. So this course, Heart Sutra course, really is about taking what's been poured into me and pouring into you. Like, all that I give is that. But these practice modules seem to me like more than that. So because they're less, didactic, you don't have to do your homeworks and quizzes. Try to have that feeling of just cracking your head open, right? Cracking your heart open and letting it pour in. And then when we do the meditations, let it stir, and let's see what we can grow between now and the end of February when we finish that. All right. So the Buddha's Mahayana teachings, meaning the great vehicle teachings, they come to us from the point where Lord Buddha is encouraging his disciples that he's already been teaching for a while. He's encouraging them to grow their motivation bigger. So presumably, his early disciples were dissatisfied with life. They're attracted to what he has to offer. And he teaches, all the details of existence and how it's all suffering and the causes of suffering and just making more suffering. And there's just really nothing that'll bring you happiness in life. Like Big Debbie Downer, thank you very much, Buddha. And he says, and there's a way to stop that. It's all driven by causes. And if you stop the causes for all that, you can reach that state called nirvana, where you yourself have no more mental afflictions, in particular, the mental affliction of ignorance, meaning misunderstanding where our happiness does and doesn't come from, which really is the source of, right, what's wrong is that we all want happiness. There's nothing wrong with that. Even the worm, even the gnat, right? Everybody is motivated to get their own happiness. And that's how it should be. But we don't understand where happiness really comes from. And we grow up being taught that you do this, you'll get happy, right? You don't do this, you'll get happy. But then actually in life, it doesn't quite seem to work like that. And some go, there's something wrong with this picture. And we go searching. So Buddha's talking to a group of people that have already said, yeah, we're hot on the trail to ending our own suffering. We see that we can do it. We've left the homeland, like we've even become monastic. We are avoiding harming others, even to the point where during rainy season, we go into retreat so we won't walk on the bugs that are trying to escape the water. And he goes, right. But what's it going to be like for you to be a person who, no matter what happens to you, your mind will not get rocked from its happiness and still be amongst a world of beings that misunderstand where their happiness comes from? In a world of beings who you see are still hurting themselves to get happy. Is that really the goal that you want? And it's like, right, I could see Kong Li's face. It's like, is that the goal I want? I don't think so. So it's not like Buddha saying, okay, now that you're here, you have to learn this. He's right, he questions. And so hopefully somebody goes, no, I want more than that. I want everybody to be happy. And he comes out with this Heart Sutra teaching. Now, I don't know really if the Heart Sutra was the first time he offered the Mahayana or if it was some other sutra, but let's pretend we know. And he had this conversation with his main students and they go, oh my gosh, there's more? Wow, teach us, please. And the Heart Sutra is what comes out of it, where basically he's going to say, all that stuff I taught you about, all these existing things, that body and mind, the 5 heaps, the 6 doors of sense, the 12 whatevers, the 18 that's, the 24 these is, the 36 that's, all that stuff, that's all true and not true, actually, because all of that stuff, it doesn't exist. And it's like, what? Right? Of course it exists. And so the Heart Sutra is the way in which Lord Buddha shook up his students to help them open their hearts to this higher ideal of recognizing that if one being can end their suffering forever, then there must be a way to do it. And if there's a way to do it, every being should be able to do it. Logical. And if every being has the capacity to reach this state of happiness, ultimate happiness, really knowing how to create it and then creating it and perpetuating it. But in order to reach that, they would have to learn how to do that. And in order to learn how to do that, they have to have somebody to teach them. Wouldn't we want to contribute to teaching that? And then to teach it, don't we have to learn it? And then, what we know about karma and emptiness already is like, well, the way I really learn it is by trying to teach it, trying to share it, because that plants the seeds for me to, right, get taught it, learn it. And so you see how the circle, the spiral grows by sharing what we learn with others, even before we believe that we know it well enough to share it. We can share it. This is what I was taught. This is what I heard. Right? And we're going to hear that from the Heart Sutra teaching. Once I heard this teaching so that I could share it with you. So, put a little peace in your mind of going, wow, maybe someday I will share this teaching with somebody. it doesn't have to be formal like this, but anyway. So Mahayana is speaking to those who have the attraction to teachings that say, look, you have the capacity to become a being who can help other beings awaken their capacity to become beings, who can awaken other beings to become beings. Right? It's like I can't ever stop saying that to finish my sentence, which is to become beings who perpetuate ultimate happiness. And I want to finish that sentence by saying in themselves, in their world, but that would limit what I'm trying to convey, right? They become a being of ultimate happiness. They become being ultimate happiness. And I mean, just for a fraction of an instant, think, what would it be like if just all humans knew the path, even if it hadn't gotten there yet, but knew, gosh, all I have to do is be more kind, right? And eventually, happiness is just going to erupt like that volcano. Anyway, so that's what we're here to do, is contribute to our own growth along our spiritual path to becoming a being who will help every being become a being, who helps every being become beings who are ultimately happy. So whether or not you've declared yourself to be on that path, you are welcome to hear this teaching, practice this teaching or not, totally up to you. I hope I can inspire, but it's not like you have to be card-carrying Buddhist, Geshe Michael says, to study any of the ACIs. And, I've shared with people who are not card-carrying Buddhists and got a lot out of it and then went into their own path, and I've heard them say, by studying what I did in the ACI, I've become a better Christian. And I love that because, right, it's not about Buddhism with a capital B. It's about the philosophy. It's not the religion, the way of life. Okay, so the Heart Sutra is a concise summary of what we will do on our spiritual career path from suffering human to totally enlightened being. Really concise and cryptic, which is why we'll take 8 classes to decipher it, just to get the introduction to deciphering it so that you can decipher it the rest of the way with your own investigation and meditation practice. So I understand in Asia, the Heart Sutra is a popular and often familiar sutra, and that, I don't know, maybe as a kid you were even asked to memorize it. And people would come, you would have your, person from your temple come and read it in your home, or you read it at a special occasion, or you have it read to clear, like a new home. You move into a new home. I don't know if that ever happens, but you would read the Heart Sutra in the new home to clear obstacles, or out in a park, right, to influence the beings in the park. All kinds of different things you can do, which once you've received the download, which you're going to receive very soon, you can go take your Heart Sutra and go read it in the park, right? Read it over the pond, read it over the neighborhood nursing home, right? To spread the vibe. It's kind of fun to do that. So the text that we have, in fact, Joanna, come to think of it, I think the text that people download from the ACI Dharma website has just the Tibetan script, but not the ABC letters. But did we share a ABC letters one? So that
We have
with
a
the
scanned
data,
one.
yeah,
We took pictures.
okay. Could you share that with this group? I'm sorry, I didn't think of that until now. So that we can actually, you know, read the words that I'll be talking about.
Everybody can go to your website, because on the website we have Tibetan, Sanskrit, and the English version. We were transcribing it from the pictures that we took.
Excellent.
So I can send the link. Yeah.
Okay, please. Okay. Why did I go there? So the text that Geshe Michael translated for us is the Heart Sutra text from the Sanskrit of India as it made its way into Tibet in the, I want to say 700s, although it could have been earlier than that. And the Tibetans translated those Sanskrit sutras in a couple of different waves. And then within those translated into Tibetan texts, they made their way into the different monastic traditions of Tibet. And our monastic tradition is the Gelugpa. So we have the Heart Sutra Tibetan version that's studied by the Gelugpas. Most of the Sanskrit teachings by Lord Buddha have been lost, but they were, many of them were translated into Tibetan, and those Tibetan collections were also lost. But fortunately, we have the ALL, right, group that's been searching for them for, I don't know how many years, 30 years. And during the 1990s, when Geshe Michael was preparing to teach this for the first time, what's now ALL had recently found that collection in St. Petersburg Library, many of which were Choni Lama's commentaries. And they found a commentary by Choni Lama on the Heart Sutra, which had been lost for many years. And so Geshe Michael was working from that commentary to teach this course originally. And now that commentary has been fully translated by Geshe Michael and Venerable Jigme, and it's available as an ebook from the Diamond Cutter Press. It's called, what's it called? Sunlight, the sun that illuminates profound thusness. So that's what this course is taken from, is Choni Lama's word by word of the Heart Sutra from the Tibetan, from the Sanskrit. And then we have Geshe Michael's English translation, which, I'm so grateful for his ability to put these difficult concepts into little short words that I can understand. And so, that's the translation that we will use and we will learn as well. So I'll always begin and end our classes in my usual way, which is with those opening prayers. If you know them, mute yourself and you're welcome to say them along with me, or you're welcome to just listen and imagine doing what they're describing. And if this is not your particular tradition, just go along with the idea, but morph it to fit your own belief system. That's fine as well. At the end, we'll dedicate so that we get to put the goodness in the bank. All righty. So what I'm supposed to do is offer the oral transmission of the sutra first. So I would like to do that first in English, and then I will bungle through the Tibetan for you so that you can receive it. So your job in receiving a transmission is just to open up. Try hard not to get distracted, but you will. But come back and just feel like, again, you've cracked yourself open and just let it pour into you. Your job is not to understand it when you're receiving the transmission. Just fill yourself with it, right? Okay, so settle in. Relax. I need to change glasses. Okay, here goes. The Exalted One, the Lady of Conquest, the Sutra on the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom. The name of this sutra in Sanskrit is Arya Bhagavati Prajna Paramita Hridaya. In Tibetan, this is Pakpa Dema Sherab Kiparo Tu Chimpe Ningpo. I bow first to all enlightened beings and to every warrior saint. Once I heard this teaching. The conqueror was staying on Vulture's Peak in the keep of the king. With him was a great gathering of monks and a great gathering of warrior saints. At a certain moment, the conqueror went into deep meditation on the part of the teachings known as the awareness of the profound. At that moment, too, did the realized being, the great warrior, the Lord of power, loving eyes, see into this one deep practice, the practice of the perfection of wisdom. He saw perfectly that the 5 heaps, the 5 parts of a person, were empty of any nature of their own. Then, by the power of the enlightened one, the junior monk named Shariputra turned and asked this question of the great warrior, loving eyes, the realized one, the Lord of power. If any son or daughter of noble family hope to follow the deep practice of the perfection of wisdom, what would they have to do? This then is the answer that the Lord of power, the realized one, the great warrior, loving eyes, gave to the junior monk named Shariputra. Here, Shariputra, is what any son or daughter of noble family should see who hopes to follow the deep practice of the perfection of wisdom. See first, all 5 heaps, all 5 parts of a person are free of any essence of their own. Your body is empty. Emptiness is your body. Emptiness is nothing but your body, and your body is nothing but emptiness. The same is true of your feelings and your ability to discriminate between things and the other factors that make you up and all the different kinds of awareness that you possess. All of them are empty. And thus we can say, Shariputra, that every existing thing is emptiness. Nothing has any characteristic of its own. Nothing ever begins. Nothing ever ends. Nothing is ever impure. Nothing ever becomes pure. Nothing ever gets less, and nothing ever becomes more. And thus we can say, Shariputra, that with emptiness there is no body, there are no feelings, there is no ability to discriminate, there are none of the other factors that make you up, and there is no awareness. There are no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to smell, nothing to taste, nothing to touch, and nothing to think of. There is no part of you that sees. There is no part of you that is aware of that you are seeing. And this is true all the way to the part of you that thinks, and the part of you that is aware that you are thinking. There is no misunderstanding your world. There is no stopping this misunderstanding. And the same is true all the way up to your old age and death, and to stopping your old age and death. There is no suffering. There is no source of this suffering. There is no stopping this suffering. There is no path to stopping this suffering. There is no knowledge. There is nothing to reach, and there is nothing not to reach. Thus it is, Shariputra, that warrior saints have nothing to reach. And because of this, they are able to practice the perfection of wisdom and stay in this perfection of wisdom. This frees them from every obstacle in their minds, and this frees them from all fear. They go beyond all wrong ways of thinking and reach to the ultimate end of nirvana. All the enlightened beings of the past, the present, and the future too follow this same perfection of wisdom, and thus bring themselves to perfect enlightenment, to the matchless state of a totally enlightened Buddha. Thus are they the sacred words of the perfection of wisdom, the sacred words of great knowledge, sacred words of the unsurpassable, sacred words that are equal to the one beyond all equal, sacred words that put a final end to every form of pain, sacred words you should know are true, for false they cannot be, sacred words of the perfection of wisdom, which here I speak for you. Tayata gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi swaha. And thus it is, Shariputra, that great warrior saints must train themselves in the profound perfection of wisdom. With this, the conqueror stirred himself from his deep state of meditation. He turned to the great warrior, the realized one, loving eyes, the Lord of power, and blessed his words, saying, "True, true," he said, and true again. Thus it is, O son of noble family, and thus is it. One should follow the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have taught it. Every one of those gone thus rejoices in your words as I do. And when the conqueror had spoken thus, the junior monk Shariputra took joy, and the warrior, the realized one, loving eyes, the Lord of power, took joy as well. And all the assembled disciples took joy, and so did the entire world with its gods and its men and near gods and spirits too. Take joy. All sang their praises of what the conqueror had spoken. This ends the Sutra of the Greater Way, known as the Lady of Conquest, the heart of the perfection of wisdom. It was first translated from Sanskrit by the Indian abbot Vimalamitra, together with the master Tibetan translator, the Venerable Rinchen De. It was later checked and standardized by the master translators and editors Gelo and Namka, among others. The translation into English was complete by the American Geshe Gelong Lobsang Chunsen Michael Roach, with the assistance of the American woman with lifetime vows, Christine McNally. All right, English. Now the Tibetan. And please, every Tibetan, forgive me for my pronunciation. Pakpa chomden dema sherab ki paro tu chimpe ningpo. Dike dake dupe du chikna chomden de gelpoi kapna jagu pungpoi rila gelongi genden chempo dong changchub sempe genden chempo dong tab chikdu shukte e de se chomden de zamo nongwa se jowe chuki namdrang ki tingin zinlan yampar shuk so Yang de se changchub sempa sempa chempo pakpa chenrazi wang chuk cherab ki paro tu chimpa zamo chupar nampar ta shing pupo nampo de dakla yang no niki tompar nampar ta o dene sangeki tu se dang dempa share vatepu changchub sempa sempa chempo pakpa chenrazi wang chukla dike cheme so Ricky Pumo Gangla La Sherab Kiparo tu Chimpazamo Chupo Chepar Dupar De Chitar Lapar Ja Deke Che Mepa Dong Changchup Sempa Sempa Chempo Pakpa Chenrazi Wang Chuki De Kise Dong Dempa Shari Pula Dike Che Meso Shari Pu Ricky Pumo Gangla La Sharab Kiparo tu Chimpa Zamu Chupar Chepar Dupar De Ditar Nampar Tawar Jate Pungpo Napo De Da Kyang No Niki Tompar Nampar Jesu Ta O Suk Tompa O Tompa Ni Sukso Sukle Tompa Ni Shemayen Tompa Ni Le Suk Shenmayen No Deshen du so dong du she dong du je nam dong nam par she pa nam tompa o shari pu de tawa na chu tam che tompa ni de seni me pa ma ke pa ma gak pa drima me pa drima dong drowa me pa driwa me pa gongwa me pa o shari pu de tawa na tompa ni la suk me zoro me du she me du je nam me nam par she pa me Mik me noa me na me che me lu me yi me suk me dra me dri me ro me rekja me chu me do. Miki kame ching miki nampar shepe kam me pa ne yiki kame ching yiki nampar shepe kam ki bardo yang me do. Marikpa me ching, marikpa sepa me pa ne gashe me ching, gashe sepe bardo young me do, dung yawa dong, kun jungwa dong, gopa dong, la me, yeshe me, tope me ma tope young me do. Shari pude tawa na, changchup sampa nam, topa me be, chir sherab ki paro tu chimpa, La tene ne te semla dripa me pe jikpa me de chinchi lokla shintu de ne nyang genle de pe charpan tarchan to dusum du nampar shukpe sange tamche kyong sherab ki paro tu chimpa la tente lana me pa yang dakpar zokpe changchu nungpar zokpar sange so de tawa na sharab ki Paro tu chimpa nak, rikpa chimpoi nak, lana mepe nak, mi nampa dong nyampe nak, dunyal tamche rab tu shiwar jepe nak, mi zumpe na, dampar shepar ja te, charap ki paro tu chimpe nak, mepa taya ta, gate para sang gate bodhi, swaha. Sharipu Changchub Sempa Sempa Champu Sharap Ki Paro Tu Chimpa Zabmo La Detar Nampar La Parja O Dane Chamden De Tingen Zen De La Shengte Changchub Sempa Sempa Champa Pakpa Chenra Ziwang Chukla Lexo She Jawa Jine Lexo Lexo Ricky Pude Deshan No De Deshan Te Jitar Kyuki Tempa Deshan Du Sharab Ki Paro Tu Chimpa Zamola Jepar Jate Deshan Chekpa Nam Kyang Jesu Yu Rong No Chanden Deki Deke Cheke Katsel Ne Sedong Dempa Shari Pudong Changchub Sempa Pakpa Chenra Ziki Wangchuk Dong Tamche Dong Dempe Gor Dedak La Dong Mi Dong Lama yin dong trisar chepe jikten yirong te chamden deki sumpa la numpar tu do. All sang their praises of what the conqueror had spoken. Ta-da! You now have the download. Fun. Sumati loves to tell this story, so I'm going to tell it too. Lama Christie was giving her Set Your Practice on Fire courses on Monday and Friday night at Diamond Mountain. They were amazing, amazing courses meant to improve our meditation, and they did. But really, they were classes on emptiness, so deep and amazing. So in the first, I don't know, year or more, the assignment she gave us was to do hypertexting, where you went through the Tibetan and word for word. I don't know. I never really learned how to do it well. And Sumati really doesn't like doing hypertexting. And after a year or so, Lama Christie asked for feedback on her teaching. And Sumati said, you know, can we do something other than hypertexting? So the next term was, I don't know what we were studying, but she said, you know, I got feedback. There were people, like she's looking at David, who didn't like hypertexting. So I'm going to give us a new assignment. And our new assignment is memorize the Heart Sutra. We weren't studying the Heart Sutra, but she says, memorize the Heart Sutra. And he goes, like, the look on his face is like, I got this covered because I know it already. And then she goes, in Tibetan. He goes, oh man. So we all got to memorize the Heart Sutra in either Tibetan or Sanskrit, and then eventually Chinese, because Sumati complained about hypertexting. But as a result, some know it. I don't know it. But I encourage you, right? If you want to plant some really serious seeds, to assign yourself a memorization of something, right? Start with the English. And of all the things to memorize, Geshe Michael once said, if you got stuck on a desert island with no Dharma books, and you had in your mind the Heart Sutra, Source of All My Good, Three Principal Paths, and 1,000 Angels of Bliss, you could get yourself totally enlightened sitting on that desert island, you know, if you live long enough. But like, that's all you need. And that's not so hard to do. So anyway, Heart Sutra in your language would be just fine. And I think it's available in everybody's language now. And so you just need to find it, I guess. And then it rattles around in there, you know, and you'll be surprised when it pops up and is helpful, especially once you've learned a little bit about it. All right. So we are going to do a word for word investigation into the Heart Sutra. You know, in the end, it doesn't end up being word for word, but it's pretty much word for word. And we'll flip between the Tibetan a little bit and the English. I am not a Tibetan scholar. I'm not an English scholar. So I'm just given the Tibetan words as I've learned them. I really don't know that language at all. But there are some words that to talk about them gives us a deeper understanding of what's trying to be conveyed into the English. And so that's why I'm going to do it. And then, you know, it's you're not obligated to know any of that Tibetan. That said, however, to make some effort in learning some Tibetan words helps keep Tibetan language in the world. And as we know, it's a dying language because its people are not being taught, its children are not being taught to read and write Tibetan, and their main language is not their main out in the world language is not Tibetan anymore. And so we are at risk of losing people that are able to read the texts, the classic texts that are in the libraries available to somebody who can read Tibetan. And so really it's a fragile thing. And just to plant seeds, dike, dake, dupe, duchingna, like I can remember that once I heard this teaching, it's enough, right, to do my little part to keep Tibetan language in the world. And 30 years later, we have the translator group working really hard, and there are other translators translating Tibetan too. Ours is not the only one, of course, but do your part. Learn to say dike, dake, dupe, duchingna. Okay? If I can do it, anybody can do it, because I'm just like a language dolt. So we're going to learn the Heart Sutra and its meaning, and then we're going to learn a meditation. So there are lots of different ways you can meditate on the Heart Sutra. Geshe Michael chose to share with us the meditation developed by Kedrub J, Jetsum Kapa's left-hand disciple. His specialty is the Diamond Way, but of course he mastered all the ways. And he developed this 4-part meditation that takes us through recognizing our ordinary condition of perceiving ourselves in our world, and then imposing what we understand about mental seeds ripening, and then working with dancing between seeing something wrongly and removing the mistake, and seeing something correctly and what that's going to be like. And it's really such a deceptively simple meditation, but like a arrow going through the rose petals, right? It's really precise, but we're going to learn it step by step. And that way you're good at it by the time we're done. And then it's up to you to do it. And then when we did our week-long retreat on it, we took what are called the 4 close recollections and did those 4 different steps with the 4 close recollections. And wow, was that a potent practice. So this group's not going to get to do that, but I just mention it because you're welcome to ask anybody that was at that retreat and say, how do I do that? Teach me how to do that, right? And they can help you. All right, let's take a break there and we're ready to dig into the sutra itself. So I will pause my recording. Help me remember to start it. Got it. Okay, so recall that we're at the doorway to the Mahayana, to the greater vehicle. And again, we're studying from Choni Lama's commentary, Sunlight on Suchness. Choni Lama Drakpa Shedrup, his dates are 1675 to 1748. I have that in my notes. I can't remember that. He was the author of many of the textbooks for Saramay Monastery. So through the course of our ACI and Diamond Way career, we'll get very familiar with Choni Lama and his writings. So he starts out, thanks, Francisco. He starts his commentary out with an explanation for why to study the Heart Sutra, like what the benefits are going to be. And he quotes sutra. So sutra usually means words of the Buddha. And this one is the Samadhi Raja, King of Samadhi Sutra, where it says, if you are able to analyze what emptiness means, and if you are eventually able to see emptiness directly, then this is the only way to reach nirvana and enlightenment. There is no other way. All right, I just stalled myself out. Don't we have to understand emptiness to reach nirvana? Yeah, of course we do. And is the emptiness that we see to reach total enlightenment going to be different than the emptiness that we see that would take us to nirvana? No, right? Emptiness is emptiness. And yet, apparently, we can understand emptiness at a level that isn't quite sufficient for getting us to either nirvana or total enlightenment. And once we perceive it directly, then we can no longer misunderstand it. And then, I don't know, it seems to me, this is just puny Sarani speaking, is like, how could you still aspire to your own nirvana as your goal once you've experienced emptiness directly? It doesn't seem to me that you would mistake the nirvana goal as the highest goal, but it's not the emptiness that influences us in that way. It's what we bring, it's what we've learned going into that experience. So when we go into our direct experience of emptiness with a mind imbued with bodhicitta, we've heard that, right? That's when that experience puts us on the conveyor belt to total enlightenment. If we go into our direct experience with the mind imbued with, I want to reach nirvana, then that will be the goal we come out with. Do you see? But either way, emptiness, this thing we're calling emptiness, which is not a thing, this concept that we're learning about, is this critical doorway to the change that we want to see in ourselves and our world. So Buddha is saying, if you don't see emptiness directly, you're not going to reach the happiness you're looking for, whether it's your own or everybody's. So it's kind of important to understand this thing, emptiness, isn't it? To get it intellectually enough that we'll get it heart-wise enough so that it can influence us. And of course, the way it influences us when we understand is that it motivates us to choose our behavior more specifically, to avoid harming others, to actually be more kind, and to do both with this mind imbued with ultimately helping all suffering stop forever. So what's meant by emptiness? Choni Lama doesn't go into it yet. But let's start there, because it's so important that we have it fresh in our minds. So somebody help me do this. See this thing? Look carefully. Oh man, you can't see. There it is. Watch this defining moment. Okay, here's another defining moment. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Defining moment. So what is this thing, please?
It's a pen.
It's a pen. Clearly, it's a pen. Pen's right. You can do all kinds of other things with pens, can't you? But pen's basically right. So now what if a little dog comes in here and I hand this to the little dog? What's the little dog going to do with it? Yeah, they're going to sniff it first, put it in their mouth, and then, I don't know, drop it or chew on it or run away with it, right? Are they going to write with it? Could they write with it? Yeah, not in my world. So what does that say? So just think about that. What does it say about the identity of this object? If you and I can say, oh, it's a pen, but the little dog says, chew toy. Like really, pretend you haven't heard that before. Can you feel your mind going, wait, something about this object is influenced by the observer, but exactly what, I can't figure out, because come on, the dog's chewing on a pen, but no, I see for them, it's not a pen at all, but I can chew on it, but that's not what pens are for. Can you feel your mind going, meh? And yet that example is proof that the identity of this object is not coming from it. But honestly, if I hold this thing up and say, what is this thing? And you say it's a pen, honestly, don't we have this deep sense that the object conveys to me its identity? Right. And that's going to be step number 2 in our emptiness meditation, is to actually experience ourselves believing that the object is telling us its identity. We want to find that, because that's the mistake we're making. And if we don't identify the mistake, we can't stop doing it. So it's hard in meditation to make yourself zoom in on what we're doing wrong and park there, because we don't want to do it. Right? We understand enough that this is the mistake. I reject the mistake. And it's like, no, we're going to get really familiar with, I call it the blame factor. And it feels harsh, but I do, for me, it helps me to have that harshness of blaming, the sun for feeling so good on my skin. It still is it's a mistake to blame anything for anything. Anyway, so the question then is why? Like, first of all, who's right? Humans, dog. What about infant baby? Infant baby kind of does the same thing as dog, right? Oh, throws it on the floor. Is it a pen for the infant baby? Not yet. Not until they're old enough to write on the wall with it, right? Doesn't every baby do that somehow? And then what about the fly? Right? It's not a pen for the fly, it's landing pen. Who's right? Everybody's right. And everybody's wrong. Because we believe it's a pen, in it, from it. I love those words. In it, from it. The dog believes it's a chew toy, in it, from it. Assuming the dog's not, emanation of Buddha. Fly believes it's landing pad. Baby, whatever baby does. They're all right and they're all wrong because it's not in it, from it, the way it seems. But it is not there at all, of course. So now the question is why? And really that's the harder part. And my experience with all of the ACIs is when we got to the why part, Geshe Michael said, seeds in your mind, right? He just jumped past this chasm of logic about the answer why. And I never was brave enough to say, can you explain that? Right? Can you go through that step by step? And I never heard it done. But then I took that on myself. And it took years. And I don't know if I have it right or not, but it's worth plugging away at. And Arya Nagarjuna helps a lot because he teaches us about the relationship between results and their causes and causes and their results. And there's a clue in there about why a dog sees chew toy and a human sees pen. And the answer to that why then is the connection, or reveals to us the connection between our behavior and our reality. So maybe it's so critical to come to that conclusion ourselves, that that's why they don't say, look, think of it this way. But think of it from the perspective of any experience that we have has to be a result, right? An experience is a result. And if you can come to that conclusion and go, yeah, I see how every experience is a result, then every result had to have a cause. And then we learn about causes and think about it. So I'm just going to leave it there. The why, the dog sees chew toy, human sees pen, is a result of a cause. How do we make causes? Does anyone have a pen? I do. Oh, this guy has made the cause. I need a pen. Oh, look. Causes grow. Okay. All right. So keep that in mind. The Heart Sutra doesn't talk about that. But it's a piece that we want to keep adding. Kedrub J's meditation doesn't add it either. But our conclusion from Kedrub J's meditation, if we do it correctly, will be, oh my gosh, how I interact with others is the key. Right? It's so critical. Alrighty. So again, what's the connection between everybody just wants happiness and learning about emptiness such that we can go on to experience it directly someday? Right? We know the punchline. Direct perception of emptiness puts us on the conveyor belt to the end of all suffering. So that's why it's so important. But we want to understand that more deeply, deeper than just the words. So in the course of our spiritual life, however long it takes, whatever tradition we might find ourselves in, there'll be 5 realizations that we experience. Tibetan, they call them paths, lam, paths. And we think of a path, as the path to get someplace. And that's true. But path here is also used in this sense of something that has become real for us, a realization. So realization isn't just, oh, I get it. A realization is some direct experience that you have, a result of which is that you can never unhave it. You can never not know after you've had some direct experience. For instance, suppose you never learned to ride a bicycle as a little kid, and as an adult, you decide, I want to learn to ride a bicycle. So you get out every YouTube, every book, you read, you watch, you explore, and you become an expert at riding a bicycle, but you've never actually gotten on one. And then finally, you get on one. And finally, you actually ride. And you have this direct experience of what it is to ride a bike. No, even if you never ride a bike again in your whole forever, you now know what it is to ride a bike. Whereas with all that previous, study and watching, you didn't know. You knew intellectually, but you had not experienced it. And then once you have experience, nobody can say, no, that's not what it's like to ride a bike. Because you go, I did it. That is what it's like. It may not be like that for you, but for me, right? A real, valid, that's a realization. Something has become real for us. Excuse me. On our spiritual path, excuse me, our realizations happen in deep states of meditation, they tell us. We can have realizations outside of meditation. For instance, when we experience the seed ripening directly into pot on stove, some of us have just studied that recently. That won't be in meditation, and that is a direct realization of Chuchok, the highest experience of deceptive reality. And once you have that, right, you can't unknow. But the realizations that move us through these stages of our spiritual growth happen in a deep state of meditation. So Geshe always says, so if we don't get into deep states of meditation regularly enough that we can sustain one deeply enough to have a realization, we're not going to get them, right? If you never get on the bicycle, you're never going to have the experience of what it's like to ride the bike. So meditating regularly, even lousy meditations, regularly are an important piece of our spiritual path that provides the opportunity for the ripening seeds of the realization to happen. Now, theoretically, we could have the seeds that, you're not a meditator at all, and some extraordinary series of goodnesses that you do ripen some past seeds for having been a good meditator or helped others meditate well, probably more importantly. And all of a sudden, like you sit down, you go into the direct perception of emptiness. That's possible, of course. It would take extraordinary goodness. And, we can rely upon that, or we can set about to cultivate it, please. And set about to cultivate it means we get our fannies on our cushion regularly, whether we feel like it or not. And to do that, we need some training in how to do that and how to make it effective and how to do it in such a way that we don't over push ourselves, but under push ourselves. And, so there are other courses designed for that. We have a fun retreat coming up in January where we're going to explore that a little bit. We'll see how that goes. But we know it's not about daily. It's not about the effort on any given day that makes our meditation good. It's our efforts off our cushion time that makes our on cushion time get better and better, right? So again, we're going to spend half of this course learning a meditation, not really how to meditate, but a meditation. That then if you need help learning how to meditate on that meditation, right, ask again. Okay, so these 5 paths, 5 realizations that we will come to along the course of our spiritual path are the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of habituation, and the path of no more learning, which actually, like, it's the realization in which our perception of ourselves and our world has transformed. For a Mahayanist, it's our total Buddhahood, reaching our 4 extraordinary aspects of our totally enlightened being and starting our career, actually, right? So all the other 4 realizations are preparing us to begin what we're supposed to do. For years, it was like, oh, becoming a Buddha is the end. It's like, no, it's the beginning. And for me, that made a big shift in my mind when it's like, oh, figured that one out. So the transition between these different stages happens in deep meditation. That's the point. Path of accumulation is about accumulating enough disgust with this samsaric world that we go looking for some answers as to why it's so broken. And we reach some answers to why it's so broken enough that we try those answers on for size and continue our progress in studying and learning. And path of accumulation and path of preparation, they're not like defined. You leave one and start the next. It's like when your path of accumulation takes us to find a tradition that we relate to, then we naturally want to know more. And we dig in deeper, and that's path of preparation, where we're actually doing our study time, our practice time, right? Going on retreat time. We're working with learning the material. And we're still accumulating more renunciation as we as we do our path of preparation. Because the more we understand the mistake, right, the more we renunciate making the mistake, and the more effort we make in our path of preparation, right? So those first two feed on each other. And, I kind of will go out there and say, I don't think we ever get off the path of accumulation until we're done with our ignorance. Because deep, deep down in what needs to be rejected, renunciated, is our misunderstanding where things come from. And if we could just do that, just turn off that ignorance, would you? Like, phew, we would skate through those 5 realizations so easily. But there's some, deep, dark part of us that wants to keep that ignorance, man. Don't make me give that up, because we think it means there'll be nothing. And that's not possible. But anyway, it's human to resist giving up the ignorance, even when intellectually it's like, I don't want any part of this anymore. If it were that easy, we'd all be Buddhas already. Maybe you are, but I'm not. So thank you so much for helping me. 6:30. Before we land on our path of accumulation, well, I remember my own mind. And I believed, I was in science, I was in medicine. I believed that the highest way I could help anybody would be able to write their prescription for their blood pressure medicine, or their, get their heart attack stopped. I thought that was the highest way I could help anybody. And very quickly I saw that, no, that's very limited. And it was unsatisfactory. But I still really, really believed that in the material world as reality. And I'd had some exposure to, I called it the woo-woo stuff, and it was interesting. And I was actually already learning how to do acupuncture. But to be honest with you, I had this materialistic view of how it worked. And even though I knew it worked, it was like, until I had a realization, I had a direct experience that showed me that the material world is not ultimate reality. And direct experience. But I had nothing to fill in. So it's like my belief in a material world reality shattered, but I had nothing to land on, right? I really went into a black hole for a number of years. And, I learned, I studied, I investigated, I explored, and I ended up in Tibetan Buddhism, actually with learning the practice Tonglen. It was my first introduction to Tibetan Buddhism. And it's like it clicked something in my heart, and, things changed. But my point is, what was my point? I believed that the material reality was the real reality. And maybe there was other stuff beyond that, but all of that was not real. Could be useful, but not real. And then I had this experience that said, you're mistaken. And there is another reality. There is a different sorry. There is a different reality. And it's here now. It's not, 2 planets to the left. It's here right now, all around us. But our worldview, our worldview doesn't allow us to see it. We're stuck in human samsaric belief system. so strongly that this is me and my world and it's real. But when we start to chip away at that belief in my material reality as real, even before we have a full-on realization of what is real, we start opening these doorways to new and different experiences. And those new and different experiences influence us to explore more and will take us deeper. Some of that happens in meditation. Most of it happens out of meditation. And it's cultivated by way of our study and our trying to apply what we learn to our own behavior. So Geshe-la says, when we have our direct perception of ultimate reality, we will finally know the mistake for what it is. We've understood, we've heard about the direct perception of emptiness, that 20, 30-minute experience of like water poured into water. That direct experience of the no self nature of oneself and all existence. And in that space of time, there's no distinction between subject and object, but it's not that there's no subject and object, but that any awareness that one could have is not ultimate reality, because ultimate reality is the absence of self-nature of anything. So intellectually we go, yeah, I get it. But really, if we try to penetrate it intellectually, our brains will pop because we can't get it. It has to be a direct experience that you then come out of, and then you're not in it anymore. But there are things that you realize were experienced while you were in it. And again, this doesn't make sense because it all sounds like you experienced some kind of appearing reality while you were in there, and you don't. But the ramification of your experience is such that what you know is that you have seen your future lives directly. You will have met the Dharmakaya, the ultimate reality of Buddhas. You will have seen the day of your own enlightenment. You will know how long it's going to take before that becomes your reality. And you'll know that the name you have on that day the name you will have on that day. And it won't be the one you have now, right? Meaning your identity is going to be different, right? It's not Sarani will reach Sarani's Buddhahood. Like Sarani will be long gone. Thank you very much. There are other things that you know as well. And then there are 16 realizations that come to you very shortly as you come out and through the next 24 hours that we talk about in other places. The 16 aspects of the 4 Arya truths, the 4 things you know to be true once you've come out of that experience. Mainly, what you know to be true is that this world, human world, is a world of suffering, meaning everything about it is outright suffering the suffering of change, pervasive suffering, and everything about it is the causes for more suffering. So to experience something as a result, the instant we experience something, we have had some kind of response to it, and that has planted new seeds. And those new seeds are colored with the mistake because we experienced it colored with the mistake before going into direct perception of emptiness. And so in this fleeting 65th of an instant of experience, we're perpetuating our misunderstanding. And it's like, how can we ever get ahead of that? It seems impossible, doesn't it? And yet, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes of direct perception of the no self nature of our ignorance is enough that our replanting ignorance ceases. I don't think it's instantly gone, but it's no longer complete. And so we're no longer perpetuating ignorance once we come out of our direct perception of emptiness. And then technically, you don't have to do anything differently. You just need to live. And you will reach your total enlightenment someday, because the system will burn off your ignorance eventually. But that would be like in the airport, you have access to, a conveyor belt and you choose to walk on the regular pavement. Step on that conveyor belt, and then you can just ride the conveyor belt, or you can walk on the conveyor belt, or you can run on the conveyor belt. You can sprint on the conveyor belt, right? That's up to you. And that makes up your path of habituation, getting used to learning to live according to what you now know is true, which is the no self nature of yourself and all existing things. So long story, we're going to go into it deeper and deeper. We want to go into Heart Sutra study, understanding why it's so significant. Buddha's teaching his students about the empty nature of everything, because our minds cling to, no, there has to be something that has its own nature, right? Because if not, then nothing can be at all. And that's wrong conclusion. Correct conclusion, when we understand emptiness, is like, oh, that's why everything is the way it is. That's why everything's unique to me, right? That's why my behavior can influence my whole world. Right? When we get the, wow, now I get it, versus the, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. This is what Heart Sutra is trying to help us do when we use the meditation with it. Okay. So studying Heart Sutra is the start of our journey. I hope it will bring a clear and profound realization to you. And if nothing else, we're planting seeds. So not to worry if it all feels like, right? Please don't give up. All right, now I've talked too much. I would like I get to take us through the meditation preliminaries, and then we'll do a very, very brief and abbreviated Tonglen practice. Again, recall that Geshe Michael is doing this over a weekend, so he's got a captive audience. They're going to move from meditation to meditation. I don't get to see you again till Monday, but that we want our motivation for our study of Heart Sutra to be relieving somebody else's distress. And so this Tonglen is just a little introduction to helping us open our heart. So I'm going to swiftly take us through our meditation preliminaries and do this little bit of Tonglen. I think I'm going to go over class time a little, and then I'll lead right from that into our dedication prayer and we'll be done. Okay. All right. So settle in, please, for our meditation preliminaries and a brief Tonglen. Get your body in a position where your spine is upright, your weight is on your sits bones. Feel a sense of your physical body heavy, relaxed, sinking, and your mind, your awareness alert and lifting and open. And bring your attention to your breath, where with every out breath, your physical body relaxes. With every in breath, your mental body gets more keen and alert and interested. We start our preliminaries always with refuge. Recalling all unhappiness is a result of a big mistake. Recalling that there are teachers and teachings that can help us recognize the mistake and learn to stop doing it. Think of the Heart Sutra as one of those teachings that will help you help others. Stop making that big mistake and feel a sense of relying upon it. Take refuge in the Heart Sutra. Then grow your bodhicitta. Think of that person we thought of at the beginning of class, the distress that they have. Feel your wish that they could know how to stop perpetuating that distress. And then recall that precious holy being of perfect love, compassion, wisdom, your precious teacher. You know they know what you need to know, to learn, to do, to become one who could help that other person. Feel your admiration for them. Feel your gratitude to them. Feel your reliance upon them. Think of one or two of their good qualities that you aspire to. Tell them, honor them. See them happy with you. And then make them an offering. What they like best is some behavior change you made because of something they taught you. Tell them. See how pleased they are to see you changing. And then you feel so safe with them that you're ready to open your heart. Show them some negativity that you'd like to release. Admit it, regret it because of the seeds that got planted. Establish some antidote that you'll do. It could be the little tonglen we're going to do. And establish your power of restraint. Then fill that space with some kind thing that you did recently. Tell them about that. Tell them of some kind thing you saw someone else do. See how much they enjoy hearing that from you. And then ask them to please stay close to you. Ask them to continue to teach you and guide you. Ask that they even come in many different forms. Ask them to help you recognize them as teaching you in those many different forms. Ask that beings who have a good influence on you stay close to you. Pray for their long life, healthy life. And dedicate just this much, the preliminaries, to seeing a world free of pain. And if you need to readjust your body position, you do it now. And then come back to your attention to your breath. A few rounds to switch gears from preliminary to the meditation session. A very rudimentary Tonglen is to use our breath and our imagination to take away the pain, the distress, the upset from another person. On the inhale. And so think of that person from the beginning of class. Think of their apparent outer distress. And maybe some emotional distress you may or may not be aware of. And deeper in, their apparent misunderstanding where things come from. And think, as I inhale, the power of my love and compassion will pull all that out of them. And it will just fly off into the universe and be destroyed. With every inhale, see it coming out of them. See them getting happier and happier. Kinder and kinder. And then add on your out breath. See a white light go into them. With that white light, they feel so loving towards their world. They feel so patient. They feel so happy. Think of them into next week. Your out breath still sending them this wisdom, this kindness. Feel how good it feels to have helped them in this way. Imagine it occurs to them to use their breath and imagination to extract the pain and suffering from others and give them the happiness of kindness. And they do it in secret. Just as you do it in secret. Nice. Now think of this goodness that we've done from class, from the preliminaries, from this Tonglen, and recognize these great seeds that we've made. Think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall that precious holy guide who's been there with you. See how happy they are with you. Ask them to please stay close. to continue to guide you and inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness. And may it be so. All right. Thank you for the extra 7 minutes. I will not do that very often, I promise. Okay, so presumably you already have meditation practices. Please do your preliminaries sweetly each time. And you can add a little Tonglen if you like to whatever your current practice is if you're not already doing that. And on Monday, we'll get the first piece of Kedrib J's work. Okay, so thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a lovely weekend. Some of you I'll be seeing tomorrow. See you Monday morning.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, teacher.
Yes, I'm stopping recording.
Thank you, dear Holy Lama.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.